College football world finally got to see what we know about Notre Dame, and that's that they are a playoff caliber team. A lot of people said they were a playoff caliber team, but it was mainly because their schedule is what they were pointing to. But what they finally got to see with these is that defense is immaculate. Look, this game was a rock fight until Jadarian Price had the touchdown, the 47-yard touchdown that broke the game up open for Notre Dame. But with this team, this isn't a team that's going to play beautiful ball. This Notre Dame team is built like not a bulldozer, but like a paver, road paver, whatever. They're just going to roll you over. That defense is going to wear on you. The offense is just going to try to impose its will. It's not going to be pretty, but it's going to be effective. The identity of this team is an identity that a Notre Dame team has needed for a while, and I love seeing it with Freeman. Freeman is the right guy. It's just everyone loves this instant success stuff now, and it's taken a little bit with Freeman, but it's not like he has been that far off. Everyone likes to joke on Notre Dame and make all these jokes that they're soft, they're not good anymore, when they've already done plenty in the past, even in the college football playoff era, more than some programs could even dream of their program doing throughout history. But Notre Dame's the punching bag, so it's easy. But let's get back to the game. You went into Kyle Field, where everyone was basically picking A&M because they were at home. Oh, Elko's coming in. There's still talent on this roster. We got to take A&M. They're at home. It's Kyle Field. Notre Dame's not going to win. Notre Dame went in there, was the more physical team, and slowly it just pounded away. Like I said, they got to where the breaking point, and they were the stronger team that was wearing, and A&M broke. And that defense corralled A&M, and you could say Weigman could have played better. Yes, he didn't play that great, but also a lot of it you can credit to Notre Dame. Xavier Watts and Schuler had the interceptions. Xavier Watts is one of the best, if not the best, at creating turnovers. He was last year in the country, I believe. So this defense is the real deal. Finally, people see it. I've seen people writing about it now. They're like, this defense is the real deal. They're legit. They're a playoff caliber defense. It's like, okay, finally, like, yes, y'all all these people are putting Notre Dame in their playoff, and they're all attributing it to the schedule. Yes, the schedule is easy for Notre Dame this year, and no, it's not the normal thing like I've talked about where everyone says Notre Dame has an easy schedule, because they don't. The good thing is this year they do have an easy schedule, and it's the exact right kind of team you want to have an easy schedule. Now, I'm not going to jinx anything, so I'm not going to go too far into why I think that, because I would end up saying something that I think people would be like, take that back, because then it would end up happening for people who are superstitious, like I am. But they got 2 true road games left remaining. I believe it's Georgia Tech and USC. And then the other away games are Army and Navy, which I believe are in New Jersey and New York. And I think Navy is in New Jersey and New York is Army. But for all the people that say Notre Dame always has an easy schedule, no, they don't. This year, they finally get one. And if any team deserves one, it's them. And they finally have it. They're probably going to be favored in the rest of the games like people have seen. They still have Louisville on there. Georgia Tech could be an interesting game if Georgia Tech keeps playing the way they do and are able to establish their style of play. But this Notre Dame defense, man, is the real deal. And with Riley Leonard, I really want to talk about this kid because he is the perfect player to lead this team. That kid would crawl over broken glass for half an inch on the football field. He's the perfect guy you want leading this team. You see him go out there and play the way he plays. Was 158 passing yards and I think 63 rushing yards. This is a guy that people will just get behind naturally. The kind of style he plays, it's perfect for this team. Like I've said, their build-up. He himself plays the game in a way like that bulldozer or whatever, road paver that I talked about. He's just a hardcore dude who's going to punch you in the mouth. He's willing to take the punches, and he likes it. He enjoys that kind of football. And I love it. Seeing a tough, built, gritty Notre Dame team is awesome. It's great for college football. And I know you can't get that. You can't get a bye. But honestly, with the way it looks this year, having a home game against the Group of 5 team wouldn't be bad. And then you go and play the highest ranked or lowest ranked conference champion, which would probably be, honestly, maybe the ACC with the way it looks right now. Which, well, Miami did look good, but we'll see. ACC or Big 12. But it's funny, not everyone is. There are a lot of people who are giving Notre Dame credit, but I'm also seeing a lot of people saying, basically, Notre Dame is pretty lucky that Weigman played bad. Like, look, Texas A&M is not a bad team. You played a good football team that has a hell of a defense, by the way. And Texas A&M, for people joking on you, you played the best defense you're going to play all regular season. And yes, I know you play in the SEC, but the best team you probably play is Ole Miss and Texas. I don't think they have Bama or Georgia on their schedule. That Notre Dame defense is the real deal that you just had to play with. I'm just glad to see people giving Notre Dame their flowers because they're a program that's just easy to hate on for clicks and views. and I don't like that. I'm not even a Notre Dame fan, but it's disrespectful to a program for no reason. It's the low-hanging fruit, kind of like the Dabo Sweeney and Clemson shit now is just super easy low-hanging fruit, easy engagement. It takes no effort for these people to make content about it, but they continually do it because they don't have to actually do anything. All they have to do is pick up the mic and say the same thing they've said 100 times for the last year. That's all anyone does with the Dabo stuff. That's what been doing with Notre Dame. But now they get to see it. They wake up a little bit, and I'm so happy to see this Notre Dame team, and I'm really excited to how the rest of this year is going to play out because that defense, man, oh, that's a damn good defense. Miami took Florida out back and whooped them. They walked into the swamp, drained it, stepped on it, even partied with the recruits, basically. Well, not partied, but I'll talk about that later. Miami just spanked them. Okay, Florida's first defeat in a home opener since 1989, ending that streak. Cam Ward just threw all over him, sliced him up, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. Restrepo is as good as advertised. Everyone knew about him, but he came out there and made sure everyone knew about him with 7 caught passes for 112 yards and a 24-yarder for a touchdown. The Florida defense, by the way, that was supposed to have some improvement, Miami put up 529 yards. 529 yards. This is backyard football in a rivalry game. This game was I'm sitting there and I'm so excited to watch this game. I'm like, Florida, Miami, this is going to be such a hate-fueled passion game, and it was just Miami spanked them. It wasn't even close. It was like JV scrimmaging against varsity, and Miami opened my eyes, that's for sure, because I'm not a Cristobal believer, so I'm not trying to make you hate me, Miami fans, but I'm going to have to see it to believe it with him. Like, he's going to have to do something for me to finally believe it with him. But he's always been able to get the right guys, and I love the players he has right now. Like, this team is so much fun and built perfect, and I want Miami to win because it's Miami. Like, who doesn't like Miami? Well, I guess Florida doesn't like Miami and Florida State, but Florida State's struggling with Boston College right now, as I'm aware. So Miami right now, with the way the ACC is looking too, y'all look like destined to win the conference. I had Clemson as my pick to win it, which I might be wrong because that offense is still stale. Man, my country's kicking in. Still staler than a 10-year-old Pepsi. Cade Klubnik, I'm still waiting for him to be the guy that everyone talked about. It's like DJU all over again, basically. And this is great, but y'all took Florida out back and y'all beat them. From the Florida perspective, you're stuck in purgatory, dude. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on with the Napier thing. It's like, can you fire him? Can you not fire him? There's the AD, there's an interim somewhere up north. It's like Florida is just in hell right now. And this made it worse. Like, your rival coming in and just spanking the shit out of you. I don't know how. That's got to feel awful. But the shift in the ACC is big. Right now, it looks like the rest of the ACC basically kind of sucks, except for you guys. And Georgia Tech, too. I got to give them their flowers. They look good. And also an ACC title with Miami and Georgia Tech would be awesome. Don't get me wrong. But I got to give Miami their flowers. I think I was wrong about them. I do think Florida is bad. And it does elevate things a little bit with Miami. But also at the same time, after watching that game, I think Miami is better than I initially believed. Because I know a lot of people were picking them to win the ACC. And I was sitting back and being hesitant with Cristobal. But what I saw Saturday, going into the swamp and just not even being phased. Like, it was as if Miami had already played half a football season before going in there. They were prepared to a T and just had no issues. So I just got to say, Miami played a complete, almost perfect game. Rivalry game, not even shook. I got to give them their flowers. I think they possibly are the real deal. I loved after the game, Cam Ward, I believe this was said to reporters. He was talking about the Florida fans. He said, some advice to the fans. If you're going to be loud, you have to be loud when we're huddling. Can't just be loud once we break the huddle. By that time, there's no point. We hear the play. We communicated already, but it was a good atmosphere to play in. Like, absolute slap in the face to Florida fans. And by the way, I went to the Auburn-Florida game in 2019, I believe. That was the loudest stadium I've been to for an away game, and it was a day game. So Florida has a good environment. Don't get me wrong, but him toying with the fans like that, him playing on the rivalry is perfect. I love it. Hate in rivalries is healthy. Hate is healthy in rivalries. This was hilarious. And then on top of that, you had the Florida fan being sad meme come out of this, which was funny, and then he's happy. But the Florida recruits, one of Miami's players has a cousin who's like a 5-star safety or corner recruit, and he was in there with the Florida recruits. But I have a video. I'll throw it on screen from Twitter that the Florida recruits section was over by the Miami tunnel, and you see them coming over to talk to Pickett's cousin, who's one of the recruits. But there's also other recruits there. I believe Malik Autry, one of our commits, was there as well, and a bunch of other Florida commits. And there was also a Florida recruit who celebrated when Miami threw a touchdown, which I have here. But there's this lady in blue when we go back to this video who you can see freaks out trying to get the Miami players away, and then she goes back over to the recruits talking to him. She's like, don't talk. You can see she's like, don't talk to him. Oh my God, go away. And the players, and I think you could see Pickett's cousin actually try to go over, and then the lady moves him. But that was hilarious. I mean, just talk about your rival just kicking you in the face and knocking out all your teeth. And at the same time, not only that, your rival's at a point where that elevates them. Like, them beating the shit out of you makes them look so good and makes people who questioned, like me, start to believe in them. And you give them even more of a national profile because they beat the shit out of you. And on top of that, you're also a story, but in an insanely negative light with the Napier stuff. Like, this is the biggest win-win for Miami in a minute. And I just got to say, I think I was wrong on Miami. There's still a lot of football to go. It still is week 1. But I'll admit, I think I possibly was wrong on Miami. And man, that was fun to watch. It was cool to see the U be badass again. SEC fans, you better just look out, because there might be a new challenge on your schedule, and it's a star with a V in it. How about the Commodores 13.5-point underdogs to the dark horse darling out of the ACC, which, by the way, if you're everyone's dark horse or even a dark horse, even Pry, I think, said after the game they may have let it a little bit go to their head. That's out of context, but he said something very similar to that about the hype getting to their head or something. But in all seriousness, Vandy, incredible. You almost blew it, but you got it done. Look, the game started off kind of slow, but Vandy, you came out. That defense, first off, Clark Lee taking over DC, incredible idea. Great job. That defense is fast, physical, flying around. I texted my friends in the second quarter. I was like, you got to watch this. Vanderbilt, like this, I have not seen Vanderbilt look like this. They were headhunting. They were foaming at the mouth to get that football. And Clark Lee's defensive identity is in there, which is incredible. Beck, OC hire, looks to be the right call. Bringing in Kill, also from New Mexico State with Pavia. Incredible call. I know firsthand what Pavia can do. And I remember seeing him, he's former Conference USA Player of the Year. It was kind of a transfer that just got lost in shuffle because no one really respects Vanderbilt. Not to be, like, offensive on that term, but no one really respects Vanderbilt. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, Pavia, Vandy, that's pretty interesting. And it came to fruition here. Pavia, 12 for 16, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, 26 carries, 104 yards, and a touchdown. This dude dealt all game long. I am officially nicknaming him the Magician because you don't know if he's going to run it, if he's going to pass it, if he's going to hand it off. This dude is incredible at running this offense. He single-handedly won them the game, basically, towards the end. It was said in the postgame that Pavia actually approached offensive coordinator Beck and told him he wanted the ball in his hands. And for the next 6 plays for Vanderbilt to go tie the game after they went down after leading for most of the game, or pretty much the entire game, Pavia didn't even flinch. Just methodically led Vanderbilt down the field like it was nothing. And with 4 minutes left in the game after finally going down, when it looked like, and I got to give Vanderbilt credit here, when that happened, I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh no, like that's it. Virginia Tech finally goes back up. This is usually like the air gets taken out of the room. The underdog, this is it. Like they're going to roll over. No, they punched right back in the mouth. And they're like, all right, we're going to match you. And Pavia led that down, no problem at all. Then you get the stop, and you get in field goal range, and you miss the field goal. But you go to overtime, and you got 2 plays, 2 rushes and 2 passes. Pavia's included in all of them. Touchdown. And then you stop him, and Drones, I'll give him his. In the second half, he did play very well, and then he cramped up and wasn't available right there in overtime, but I don't think it mattered. That game was Vanderbilt's. Like, I think Virginia Tech was genuinely surprised getting popped in the mouth by Vandy. I don't think they expected that physicality. I don't think they expected the athleticism. I think they very much prepared for someone like Pavia. They didn't really give him his flowers and realize how good of a player he actually is. And I can't remember, my brain does this sometimes, but I'm calling him the Magician moving forward. I'm officially nicknaming him now the Magician. Diego Pavia, the Magician, on this show. He is dealing. So we're going to look at this, okay? like I said, you were finally up, and Virginia Tech outscores you 24-10, I believe, in the second half. The fact that they didn't flinch after going back down is still just so impressive to me. With all the stuff Vanderbilt's been through, and Clark Lee, there was this weird hot seat talk in the offseason. It's just there's not much expected from Vandy, okay? This is a win that breathes life into a program that hasn't breathed since James Franklin left. I mean, this win is so much bigger than people realize. The student section was stopping to let people in, or stopped letting people in at Vandy. Like, this game was massive for this program. Like, look, they're not going to win the SEC championship or anything, but still, the thing is that you look at their schedule now. I believe the over/under was 2.5 on the year. That's getting over. I don't see how it's not, especially with this win. Everyone thought Virginia Tech was going to come in and win. You got to take Vanderbilt seriously now. That was a team that was together. They played as a unit. They didn't even falter when they got punched back. And Virginia Tech got a surprise, and they got a lot of regrouping to do. Vandy, though, don't let it go too far. You still got a lot to prove. And with someone like Pavia, I don't think it's really going to go to their heads. Because with Pavia, he was even talking about how people talk about his size after the game, and he wants people to see that he's the best quarterback in college football. He said, some people said I'm a poor man's Trace McSorley. I'm there to play how I want, play my game. When you stop, then you can talk. I love it. The magician is here to deal at Vandy, and they're going to end up getting someone. And just hope you're not one of them, because Pavia is going to do it to one of y'all. Skinner's going to do it to one of y'all. Alexander's going to do it to one of y'all. That defense as a unit is physical. Clark Lee, I love what I'm seeing. How about them Commodores? Boise State has the key to disrupting college football, and his name is Ashton Jeanty. Now look, I don't know how some people are just now finding out about this guy. Last year, we found out who he was for sure. All-American list galore. PFF's #1 grading running back. Led the running backs in receiving yards. Basically, him and Ollie Gordon, 1A, 1B. People are also talking about a Marion Hampton at North Carolina. After this Saturday, I don't think it's a question anymore. I believe it's Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in college football. I was talking about him this summer as well, believing he was, and I was saying you could possibly make him interchangeable. It's no question. 6 touchdowns, set a new school record, and matched a Mountain West Conference record for most rushing touchdowns in a single game. Career high 267 rushing yards on 20 carries. So look, you see that and you're like, oh, they must have blown him out. Look, this Georgia Southern game, from a Boise State fan perspective, was closer than it should have been. And I'm going to go ahead and say this is a game that I think if you played again this next week, you probably win by 30. Okay? It was 28-9 at one point for Boise State. And then the defense should not have happened, just let up, and it was too easy for Georgia Southern to go down the field and score before half. And then Georgia Southern got the ball after half, and then you have that really dumb penalty. Boise State was really undisciplined in this game. The defense seemed too lax. The coaches seemed to be going through the motions once they got the lead, and I think that was an issue, especially defensively. But it's 28-16. Georgia Southern, it looks like you're going to have them in a 3rd and long inside their own territory. And then you get a roughing, I believe it was roughing the passer, a personal foul on that. And that opened the game back up, because that sparked the drive for Georgia Southern. You saw the air come back into them. They're all pumped up. The players are like, yeah. They have a big play right after that. They go down and score. Next thing you know, it's a 1-possession game. And then you have the 4th and 1, where you have, not to take anything away from him, because Sire Gaines still himself had a hell of a day, and we'll talk on that in a second. It's 4th and 1 for Boise State. They're in Georgia Southern territory, but they're not deep in it. It's in like the 40-something yard area, and you have Gaines back there. Why is Jeanty not there? I know if you have him back there, I feel like the coaches are overthinking this. They're like, if we have Jeanty back there, they're going to know that it's going to him. I don't care if they know it's going to him. It's Ashton freaking Jeanty. Even they knew he was going to run the ball all game. He had that 75-yard run. I think he had a 77-yard run too for a touchdown. Who cares? It's Ashton freaking Jeanty. Put him back there and let him run the damn ball. Let him run the ball. And then that also sparked Georgia Southern too. You gave them too many opportunities to spark life. You just kept allowing them chances to get back in the game. And Georgia Southern, to their credit, capitalized on every single one of those. Now, like I said, if y'all play this game next week, I think you win by 30. But props to Boise State as well. You go all the way down to Georgia to play an out-of-conference game week 1. You have a quarterback with Madsen, who a lot of people thought Nelson was going to start when he transferred there. But Madsen was pretty good. He had the interception, and I saw some fans, there's a conflicting thought on him. But I think your ceiling as a team is higher with Madsen currently. I mean, he was 22 for 31, 280 yards, a touchdown, and interception. He had some pretty damn good throws. Like, he was pretty good quarterback throughout that game, and it's week 1. This team is going to grow. You also had Camper, who had himself a day with 4 catches and 99 yards. But it really comes back to just undisciplined play from Boise State, which I think they'll clean up. I think it was just week 1 woes, and Georgia Southern was capitalizing on all of them, and a lot of it was coaching as well. Boise State just seemed to be going through the motions, like I said. But the 8 penalties for 90 yards was bad. Some of the coaching decisions, like I said, was bad. But it's a little bit of overthinking. The rushing attack was immaculate. 7 for 11 on your third downs. I like that. And props to Georgia Southern, man. Hell of a game. They had no quit. They basically capitalized on every chance that you gave them. And they're not going to, if you're Georgia Southern, you're not going to play a running back like that again all year. You do play Ole Miss, but Ole Miss don't got a running back like Ashton Jeanty. Okay? And Georgia Southern, the way they performed, their quarterback was pretty good. And I don't know why that, I guess there's an emoji thing now built into my recording. But for Georgia Southern, there might be a bigger threat in the Sun Belt East than we believe. They get to play some good teams like James Madison. And you also get Troy in cross division. They could possibly spoil someone's season or have a better year in that division. However, for Boise State, and look at Oregon. You got Oregon this weekend. Oregon didn't look too great against Idaho. They weren't able to capitalize. They weren't good on third down. They weren't good on their fourth downs. They couldn't convert really in the red zone too well. They better wake up, because I think both these teams, defensively, especially for Boise State, though, needed to wake up, but had a lot of week 1 issues. However, both teams have a lot of talent, and as we know, Boise State's been able to beat Oregon in the past before. It's going to be tough, because I imagine Dan Lanning is going to have a hell of a week of practice for Oregon, but for Boise State, don't discount them out. Even them playing this game against Oregon close, even if they lose, is a win. Because Oregon's most likely going to be a playoff team, and last week was most likely just a week 1 weird situation. But this is Boise State's platform, because the rest of their schedule pans out. They do still have Washington State and Oregon State. They're both at home. The away schedule is not daunting at all, besides Wyoming. Things can get weird at War Memorial. It's Wyoming. It's super high up there. One of the weirdest home field advantages in all of college football. Dangerous. But I like the schedule. Portland State after Oregon, Washington State at home, Utah State at home, at Hawaii, at UNLV, who could actually be a really dangerous team, but it's not like they really have a home field advantage playing in their favor. San Diego State at home, who looked kind of bad this weekend before figuring it out. Nevada at home, who has looked actually pretty good, but at San Jose State, at Wyoming, and then you finish the year off with Oregon State. This is the weekend where Boise State has the chance to show everyone, and a lot of people finally got to see Ashton Jeanty and realized this summer I had a lot of people telling, oh my god, this is a Boise State running back? I was like, do you not know how many running backs Boise State has had in the past? Boise State has put running backs in the NFL consistently for years. This is a program that doesn't have losing seasons. This is a program that always performs well. And you're telling me you're that ignorant? You're telling me you love college football, you're a big college football fan, and you don't know that Boise State has been a running back factory, kind of? And that you love college football, but you don't know who Ashton Jeanty is? Dude's a top 5 player in college football. He's the best running back in college football. I'm glad everyone got to see that this week. He is the secret weapon that Boise State has and the key to disrupt college football. Get into the playoff, win a game, shock somebody. I'm just telling you, man, this team is going to be so much fun to watch. I think a lot of it, why it was close, like I said, was week 1 woes, undisciplined play. The defense should be able to clean up. If not, we'll see Oregon dismantle it pretty quickly, but they also have to stop your offense. And I think Madsen will probably be composed. Jeanty, man. And Gaines, behind Gaines. I forgot to talk about this. Later in the year, especially through conference play, there are going to be games where you're going to have to depend on Jeanty, and you're going to have to run him. But the thing is, with a player like that, that's what you want to do. He's that good. But you have Gaines as well, who showed himself an incredible backup and future running back, to have him to take some of that pressure. Not all the workload necessarily has to be on Jeanty throughout the year, which is huge, especially in this 12-team era now, where you can consistently put yourself in there when you've deserved chances in the past. But this is great. Boise State's such a fun team. I made a video about them in the off-season before Nelson was not named the starter and everything. But this is just a fun football team, man. And Boise State is a team that has always been underappreciated. They've always gotten less attention than they deserve, even when they have gotten attention. It's more so the like, oh, it's so cute, look at you go kind of attention, rather than a respect thing. And Boise State deserves more respect, and Ashton Jeanty deserves everyone's respect. The media's need for drama is overshadowing and clouding Georgia's great win over Clemson. All these media members and all the media, ESPN, everyone gets to talk about Dabo Swinney. And all they do after these situations is say the same thing they've said for over a year now. They're just repeating the same thing over and over again, and people keep interacting with it. It's so weak. Like, let's talk about Georgia. Let's talk about how dominant Georgia looked in that game, how impressive it was, how good Georgia is. Look, I give props to Clemson. That defense is good. They're the real deal. That front is good. They couldn't hold forever. But how about Georgia just spanking them in the second half? Georgia didn't even worry. Georgia was chilling. They played exactly how they wanted to. They didn't flinch. Okay? And the big thing, too, if you want to do the transfer portal stuff, Georgia had key transfers. Like London Humphreys, Colby Young scored 2 of Georgia's 4 touchdowns. And my favorite thing was Georgia outgaining Clemson 447 to 188. And 62 yards were on Clemson's last drive of that 188, which is crazy. Here's the thing, man. That's just kind of floating under the radar because everyone's talking about Dabo Swinney. Oh, my God. Dude, shut up. Let's talk about Georgia. We are underappreciating Georgia's current dynasty, and I think it's because one is coming right after Alabama's. I'm not saying Alabama's necessarily done, but like Saban going away. But they've won 40 straight regular season games. They're closing in on Oklahoma's 45-game regular season winning streak, which they also had the postseason counting into it, the 47, all that, from the 1950s. But this is something that if you would have told me when I was younger that this had a possibility of being broken, I would have said no. I would have laughed in your face. But it's for real. Georgia has only lost, or they haven't lost one in the past 3 years. They haven't lost a regular season game. Their 2 losses are in the SEC championship games. And I also want to add, Dabo Swinney has now played Kirby Smart twice. He has not scored a touchdown against Kirby Smart. And for Dabo, the one thing I will say, he had his dynasty, and it was in the middle. That's what a lot of people, they're not able to accept that he's already peaked. And it's because his peak was in the middle of Saban's dynasty. And he went toe-to-toe with him, which is great. Like, in the greatest dynasty we've seen, Dabo did that. However, they're not able to accept now that he's already had his prime, and Clemson is not a program that's going to stay at the elite at the very top. That's just not Clemson. They had their peak, but they are in a better spot they were before he got there. They're still a great program, don't get me wrong, but they're not in that upper echelon, and they're not going to be. That era's done, so let's stop talking about that, okay? That's the last thing I'm going to say. But I will say, Georgia gave him his worst loss since 2013, and Georgia needs to be respected more. Look, I get winning gets boring for the media. They don't have anything to talk about. The only time they talk about Georgia is when, I will be honest, I mean, there's a lot of speeding and the arrests. But that's the only time they talk about you. They don't know how to talk about you because you keep winning. They're not appreciating it. They don't want to talk about you because you don't give them the drama anymore. It's not cool to talk about good teams anymore. Everything is 24/7. There needs to be some weird controversy. Like, there's got to be something going on now in football media for people to talk about, rather than sitting there and enjoying what we see. Georgia is so dominant and so good, and we're in the middle of such a unique time in Georgia football, closing in on this Oklahoma record that I never thought would have had a chance to be rivaled. This regular season streak is insane. And Georgia's doing it right now. Kirby Smart, easily the best quarterback coach in college football, which I've been saying since 2021. Even when Saban was finishing his last few years, and Saban got the win in the SEC championship. But regardless, Kirby Smart's still the best. And the way he's been able to adapt, he's still old school while also being this new age, which not a lot of people can do. He can float between both, and he knows how to play it right. He's got Georgia functioning at such a high level that it's just impressive. Georgia making a mistake is surprising. They're almost perfect. And it's so great to watch football like that, where they're going up against a formidable opponent like Clemson, who has a great defense, and they're not even worried that they're getting the points because they trust and believe in themselves and their process so much that they know it's going to pay out in the end. This Georgia program right now is so much fun to watch. It's fun to watch this greatness. It's fun to see this program operate at such a high level when it really historically has always should have been this way. It is the ultimate sleeping giant that is now awake. And like I said, I can't remember what I titled the video in the summer. It was Undisputed Kings or something like that about Georgia. But Georgia's here to stay, man. And we're in the middle of the main part of it. And if you're a Georgia fan, this is the key part. I mean, you already have 2 national championships, and I'm not going to be surprised by more. I wouldn't be surprised if Kirby Smart ends up It's going to be tough, but I could see him going after the record for championships. I wouldn't put it past him. I love him as a coach. And this is just, you're living in a great time. I'm just saying, don't take it for granted. Enjoy every second of it, because a lot of us would do a lot of things to be in your shoes. And Georgia, God, man, what a time to be a Georgia fan. Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith put the world on notice, and they saw why he had so much hype. Incredible first quarter. There was a lot of questions about Ohio State and the offensive line. They didn't have Donovan Jackson. They didn't have Cody Simon on defense. The defense still absolutely ate. You had the dumb penalty from Igbenison. I don't know how to say his name correctly. On the Akron quarterback. And Will Howard dealt, dude. Besides the weird play, I think he just had a brain fart where he threw it back to Travion Henderson. And the fourth down, it could have been a better ball. But he had some dots, dude. And I'm telling you, people have been talking about Will Howard all offseason. Like, he just has to do enough. Will Howard just doesn't have to mess up. Is he really that great? All this stuff. There wasn't ever a quarterback competition. It was always going to be Will Howard. When we talk about Will Howard, set the school record for touchdown passes at Kansas State. Set the school career record for touchdown passes at Kansas State. 4th in career completions, 5th in passing yards and total offense per game. 6th in passing yards per game. 7th in passing efficiency. 4th in career touchdowns responsible for. 6th in total offense. One of just 5 quarterbacks in school history with at least 1,000 passing yards in 3 different seasons. And he also held a throwing streak, throwing multiple touchdown passes in 8 consecutive regular season games from 2022 to 2023, the longest streak by a Kansas State quarterback since 1982, also leading them to a Big Ten title in 2022. So let's not act like this guy can't play, and he's huge. Like, he's a big guy. He can run the ball. He was effective at running the ball at Kansas State. In this offense with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, that option game from the backfield is a serious threat. Will Howard's got the size to run you over when he needs to in short yardage situations. There's a lot of nitpicking with when you're a team like Ohio State that is very easy to go with. The offensive line definitely still needs to work on, and it was a little bit slow to start, but I think Ohio State was trying too hard to be flashy early, where they kind of got in their way of being able to go up big. Like, I think they were just trying too hard to be themselves that they weren't being themselves. But slow starts were an issue last year. I don't necessarily think they will be this year. That's just a week 1 thing. But they had some guys out. Overall, the defense is ridiculous, though. You only gave up 177 yards, 47 rushing. Akron averaged 2.8 yards per play. You forced 3 turnovers, 5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. The Ohio State defense is legit. The Big Ten defenses this year are going to be so fun to watch with Ohio State, Iowa, Michigan, Penn State. It's just going to be just full-on fights all weeks. It's going to be awesome. There will be some shuffles probably with the offensive line, but you got Marshall and Western Michigan up before you go to, I believe, Michigan State, which I don't think will be an issue at all after watching that FAU game, but still a long way to go for Michigan State, but I think Jonathan Smith is the right guy. But then I think Oregon is the game you have after that. No, Iowa. You have Iowa and then Oregon. But your defense with Iowa, they may not be able to score a touchdown, even though they did look good, but still. Ohio State got a lot of criticism. Jeremiah Smith just went absolutely insane. It was so awesome to finally see him in a Buckeye uniform. It was awesome to see Will Howard too, and I can't wait for him to hopefully take off. There was a lot of some of his throws were so nice. He's got such an arm, dude, just an absolute laser arm. I'm a big Will Howard guy, so I've just been so tired of just seeing all this. He's just got to be good enough. He's just got to, just this, just that. Is he really good enough? Ohio State fans, you got your quarterback. I think he is very underappreciated nationally, not necessarily from you guys. But I can't wait for him to finally spring on the scene and people give him his proper respect. Ohio State, a little bit slow, but you came out and just absolutely dominated. But with a program like yours, we got to nitpick everything because your program is excellence. My camera died, so we got to switch this up. But let's keep going with the rest of college football. I want to talk about Iowa real quick. Iowa and Auburn. So let's talk about receiving touchdowns. Iowa... in 2022 and 2023, Iowa had 5 total wide receiver touchdown catches, and they had 3 in the second half in this past game, and they had their most yards in a game in the last 5 years. For Auburn, their wide receivers only had 6 touchdowns receiving in 2023, or 7 combined touchdowns receiving in 2023 from the wide receiver position. Auburn had 6 touchdowns against Alabama A&M from their wide receivers and star freshman wide receivers in the first game, and technically 7 if you count Malcolm Simmons' blocked punt touchdown return. I also want to point out Iowa's defense, they allowed only 189 yards, and they only allowed Illinois State to average 1.7 yards per carry on the day, and they completed less than 50% of their offense, or 50% of the offense passes. If Iowa's offense is improved, we are seeing a potentially insanely dangerous team, possibly the best defense in college football. If the offense is improved, the Big Ten, we are in for a hell of a year. Look at Oregon and Michigan, moving on to them. Are we concerned? Michigan had a lot of going through the motions, I believed, and I think it kind of got too close for comfort of them looking forward. Fresno State throws the ball a lot. Michigan was subbing a lot in the secondary. Will Johnson was not on the field for like 2 or 3 possessions in the second quarter, and then you throw him in and he's not fresh, and they get a pretty good throw on him. People are saying he gets burnt, but you're not letting him sit in there and get comfortable. And then obviously when he's able to finally sit in there and get comfortable, he has that incredible pick 6 for you that seals the deal. I just think they were overthinking it. The running back room is incredible. Michigan's fine. They do have Texas coming in. The quarterback is the situation that I'm concerned about. The defense is there. Your kicker is awesome. Kicker is incredible. The run game's there. The offensive line will be figured out. Like Sharon Moore said, it's going to take time for the offensive line to gel. But I'm not worried about an offensive line under Sharon Moore. The offensive line is fine. Oregon, I just don't even know what to say. Like, you just couldn't capitalize in needed situations. Very weird, but I feel like that was an anomaly from a Dan Lanning team, and I'm sure being an Oregon player in practice this week is going to suck because they're on high alert with Boise State coming in. Next, we got the SEC, point explosions, Alabama, Auburn, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. The SEC set a record for most 60-point victories in one day in the AP poll era. Yes, it was a bunch of cupcakes, but still impressive nonetheless, a lot of points. Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Auburn were all heavy favorites, like I said, but Arkansas even scored 70, which for Arkansas, impressive. Petrino had that offense rolling. Missouri had 51, Oklahoma had 51, Texas had 52, even Mississippi State had 56. Hell, Kentucky may have put up in the 50s if they didn't have to start their game at like midnight, and then it ended up getting rained out. But still, Nico at Tennessee was awesome to watch. He's such a smooth player. Like, he's so smooth. That's the best way I can describe him. Jordan Ross, I talked about him this offseason. It was awesome to see him get a blocked punt return for a touchdown. I think he's going to be an incredible future player for Tennessee going forward. It was awesome to see him get something there. And also, Nico had 314 yards, a school record in the first half, and Tennessee and Ole Miss both had over 700 yards. Now let's go to South Carolina. Bad? They might be worse than we expected. They recovered 2 fumbles inside the Old Dominion 10, leading to its only 2 touchdowns on the day. And it was basically Old Dominion fumbling the ball is the reason they lost this game. But the thing is, it didn't look like South Carolina was ready to play. Like, South Carolina did not look like their football team was ready at all. Like, it's like they're still stuck in pre-spring ball. But the thing is, you have Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard who were definitely ready to play, and they are the reason you won the game. And Dylan Stewart, incredible 5-star. Like, fresh, just such a beast. Kyle Kennard, incredible game from him. The only guys who were ready to play. But I will say, for any guys who play South Carolina going forward, it's going to suck to play against those 2 guys because they are the real deal. But that's really the only bright spot. The rest of South Carolina, I mean, it was ugly, dude. Arizona State, got to give props to you. Figured they were in for a battle, especially against Wyoming. That's a team that usually gives people issues. Popular upset pick, which I also saw in this situation. And they're tough out. Like, Wyoming is a tough blue-collar team always. But Arizona State dominated. Start to finish, it was awesome to see from Arizona State. They held Wyoming scoreless until 2 seconds left in the game. So very impressive by Arizona State, in my opinion. North Texas was insane. They went down to Mobile, Alabama to play South Alabama. They weren't favored. USA was favored by 5.5. And North Texas was down 19-14 at half. But then the third quarter happened. 4 touchdowns. One was a blocked punt. They went up 42-26 before adding 10 more points in the fourth quarter, winning 52-38. Chandler Morris was 32 of 41 passing for 415 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also rushed for 2 touchdowns. Damon Ward Jr., the receiver, listen to this, 12 catches for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. This offense is a firecracker for North Texas. The American, they were a firecracker last year, but this year they look like they are attuned. American, get ready. That is not going to be a fun offense to go against. The Mean Green is going to be mean in the American. Sam Houston State, how about them pulling the upset over Rice? Rice was almost a double-digit favorite. San Jose State had lost to Rice in their previous 4 meetings. I think their last win was like 1939, but they don't play very frequently. But still, for 2 Texas teams, it's kind of crazy. But the game was never even close. San Jose State absolutely dominated them. They're going to be a dangerous team in the Conference USA. I know it's not the best conference, but still, for those that don't know, the FCS, Sam Houston State was a very respected program. In the FCS, they had a national championship recently before they moved up. And then last year they went 3-9, which you're like, oh, that's really bad. It was their first year, but 5 of those losses were by 1 possession or less, and 4 of those 5 were by 6 points or less. 2 of them were overtime losses. So they had a lot of losses last year that ended in heartbreak. So it's kind of like an iron sharpens iron, trial by fire. Like, we know what we need to do, and they need to polish some things up. And I think that fueled this team to see they have something to prove. And Sam Houston State was rolling, and it was cool to see them. UNLV absolutely spoiled Willie Fritz's debut at Houston. They demolished power 4 opponent Houston, like I said, 27-7. Now, Houston wasn't a high favorite in this game, but man, they are so fun to watch. UNLV, incredible what Barry Odom is doing there, especially with Brennan Moore and his go-go offense. If you haven't watched UNLV the last few years, please watch them. Week 1 awards. Coach of the Week goes to Bill O'Brien at Boston College. Couldn't have had a better game. His team was insanely prepared. They executed their game plan to perfection. They embarrassed Florida State. They bulldozed them over. Immaculate coaching for Bill O'Brien. Now let's go to players. In the ACC, Cam Ward is my ACC Impact Player of the Week. 26 for 35, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 carries for 33 yards against Florida. Big Ten, Drew Aller against West Virginia, 11 for 17, 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Big 12, Terry McMillan, 10 catches, 304 yards, which is a school record, and tied the school record for 4 touchdowns. SEC, Dylan Stewart, you saved South Carolina. You set up the game-winning touchdown by getting that strip sack on Old Dominion. He finished the game with 2 forced fumbles, 4 tackles, 3 of them which were solo, 1.5 sacks, and 1.5 tackles for loss. And the American Damon Ward of North Texas, the wide receiver, he had 12 catches for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns against South Alabama, helping his team pull the upset there. Conference USA, Sam Houston State's Hunter Watson dealt all over Rice, 16 for 27, 229 yards and 2 tutties. In the MAC, we got Anthony Tyus, third for Ohio, who they did lose to Syracuse, but against a Power 4 opponent, 16 carries, 203 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging 12.7. Gotta give it to him. Mountain West Conference, Nick Nash in the Thursday game for San Jose State against Sacramento State. 10 passes. He caught 10 passes for 170 yards, 2 touchdowns, while also throwing for a touchdown pass. That guy was so much fun to watch. In the Sun Belt, Clev Lubin out of Coastal Carolina. I had to pick one because I kind of wanted to give it to their entire defense. I mean, they just squashed Jacksonville State. The box score at the end, Jacksonville State had 357 total yards, but a lot of that was in the fourth quarter after Coastal already went up 41-10, and they held Jacksonville State to 1 for 10 on third downs and forced 3 turnovers. 160 of Jacksonville State's yards were in the last 8 minutes, but Clev had an incredible touchdown off of an interception or fumble. I can't remember exactly right now, but it was an awesome play to watch. Then my overall player of the week, who I try not to give player of the week, conference player of the week in the same to give another player a spotlight, but Ashton Genty, no doubt about it. School record, 267 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns, career-long 77-yard touchdown run, and a 75-yard touchdown run, which was needed in the fourth quarter while they were trailing, and he averaged 13.4 yards per carry. What a college football weekend.